think if we're doing our job, Matinee Idol has the relationship to something like a Corona that perhaps our IPAs have to Lagunitas IPA, right? Somebody who has had that and been like, "That's great.
Yeah.
You know, this makes me happy."
No,
and
that,
then we can be like,
that really
"Oh,
fits.
but guess what? It goes to 11 though." You know,
Right, right.
like let's keep it going.
Welcome to Henhouse Unruffled, an audio companion to the beers of Henhouse Brewing Company. Each episode will take a deeper dive into each beer's concept, recipe, can art, sensory, and more with your hen host, Fridge.
What up? What's up, Unruffled listeners? It's Fridge, your host for the Henhouse Unruffled podcast, and today I'm joined by my Unruffled co-hosts Sayre and Bob, as well as Axel Mafra. He's our Marin account manager here at Henhouse Brewing Company, and he's here to help us talk to you all about the delicious Mexican-style lager, Matinee Idol. This beer is straight peacocking as one of our most fan-favorite selections in the Celebrity Lager series. Without further ado, let's get it going. We're here with one Axel Mafra. What is your title these days in the wholesale department?
Marin account manager, just moving on up from merchandiser.
Climbing the ladder.
I mean, his title is Sir Francis Drank.
Beat me to it. Beat me to it.
Some
Sir
of us
Francis
have been
Drank.
playing around with Smooth Bob and Bob Jr. as well.
Yep. Baby Bob.
Baby Bob.
Babies are smooth.
Yeah, lots of folks be calling us Bob at Boonville, so I was like, all right, I'm Big Bob. You know, we got Smooth Bob over here.
Yeah.
Dan's probably like Metal Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah, freshly back from Boonville, guys.
We are, yeah.
And Matinee Idol was a blast at Brewers Camp.
Yeah.
It was. That one was very, very popular on Friday night. It was the first keg to tap, and it's just an absolutely delicious beer in general. I actually need to pour myself some of it right now.
Wait, this beer went to Boonville?
Yep. We took a sixtel of that. We were just like, oh, it'll be perfect for Brewers Camp for the night. Lasted like an hour.
Nice.
It was a
Yeah.
personal keg.
Yeah, people just kept coming by and drinking it. I think if we would have had that at the event, it would have gone really, really excellent as well. But Petite Saison, you know, the lemon lime kind of working with both of them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, this is definitely a brewer's beer. And yeah, I'm really excited to see it come back around. This is the second or third time Bob Matinee Idol has appeared.
Yeah, second, Fridge indicated. I'm willing to believe that.
Yeah, I know from the amount of social media content it has in the folders that it is only the second time.
Yeah.
We get to have fun with the celebrity loggers on that first initial post, making those little videos. And I think Matinee Idol is probably one of my best ones.
This is definitely one of my all-time favorite labels. And we were also doing a great fold-out poster the first time we released these, which was
Yeah.
really sticking with the teen magazine theme. And yeah, it's really fun. We were talking about some of the hens on the can before, or chickens, roosters rather. They got to be like, you know, bad boys, cute boys, funny boys, whatever.
So let's talk about this beer out in the world. Axel, you're heading up our sales in Marin County. What is the kind of wholesale reception to the celebrity lagers?
It is being loved. Everybody likes the Star Turn. I really like Matinee Idol a little bit more because when it comes out in the summer, it definitely has that like lime, like citrusy zest above it with that nice light body. But I'm always going to be a Red Overalls fan. I think that Vienna lager is, but you could tell that a Vienna lager and this is very different. They're still Mexican style lagers, but our Vienna lager tends to have a little bit more Vienna malts, a little bit more caramel characteristics. This does not have a lot of that bready characteristics, just like a light body and then just like that lemon zest on top.
Yeah.
So Matinee is perfect for like what I just imagine what you see a Corona commercial with the lime. This is an actual good, not bad version of that.
Yeah, you don't need to put the lime
Yeah.
in it. It's already there.
You don't need to cover up your DMS.
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting into, I think, what is one of the more interesting conversations the consideration of Mexican lager leads us to, which is kind of like what makes a beer style.
Right.
Right.
Like, there are books that will tell you that, I mean, I guess if I was crazy oversimplifying it, a Mexican lager is a Vienna cut with corn.
Yeah.
The same way an American macro lager or industrial lager or whatever you want to call it.
Or pre-prohibition lager,
is a Pilsner cut with corn, right?
Yeah.
And the big difference between Vienna and Pils, again, surface level, is a bit more character malt. Vienna malt instead of being 100% Pilsner malt, which is going to give you some color, some bready flavor. But of course, those of us that live in the world and drink beer, there is also a world of Mexican lagers that come from the country of Mexico.
Right.
That don't exhibit much breadiness whatsoever, right? And that are much more associated with like some lime, some salt, certain kind of cuisine, and just the kind of thing that can come in a bucket. I will take all 4 of these bottles to myself and they will be gone within the next 30 minutes kind of thing, right?
Right.
Which is
Hydration.
also, it's a wonderful thing that beer can supply in a, equatorial environment.
Big time.
So the reason I think it makes for an interesting discussion about styles and what role they play in the world is like styles are only useful as a linguistic shortcut.
Sure.
Right. And I would imagine for the vast majority of beer drinkers, if you were like, hey, you want a Mexican lager? And you presented them with Victoria or one of these classic Mexican lagers that is more a Vienna cut with a bit of corn, that's probably not what they were expecting. They're probably more expecting something that tastes like in the vein of Matinee Idol, bright golden, potentially even high carbonation, bone dry, very, very refreshing primarily. And I'm sure there's other styles where that's the case, right? Where like the colloquial understanding of the style differs from the guidelines.
Yeah, I think that's probably true like everywhere. Like everyone's, if we lived in the Czech Republic, we'd all be drinking Pilsner or Kel and being like, what is this crap other people are drinking that they think is Pilsner? Because it's not. This is the Pilsner. This has been, like a tougher one to pin down. Your description, Sayre, of Vienna cut with some maize is way better than the 800 words I wrote as far as making that information really digestible and just expressed in an economic number of words. Styles are a tradition. They're what was going on at the time that beer was created. It's what was available. It's an intention. It's the brewer saying, I'm trying to do this. And then it's a guest expectation. It's someone being able to say, oh, it's that thing. I either like or do not like that thing, and I want or do not want that thing. And then you're just hoping that all that lines up.
I was going to say, but which is it when those don't align?
Yeah.
I mean, it's guest expectation, right?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause you can make a perfect Vienna lager or a perfect whatever, and if we have broken the linguistic shortcut chain somewhere,
right,
like where that game of telephone gets effed up, and when someone said those words at the bar, they were expecting something else,
right,
and then they received the genuine article in quotation marks or according to the BJCP, but it was outside of their expectation.
Yeah.
What use is the linguistic shortcut?
Yeah, I mean, it's like imagining someone who recently turned 21 and drinking IPAs of today, and they're very familiar with a low bitterness, like hazy, like turbid appearance, very aromatic beer. And you talk to their, grandpa or their dad, and IPA to them is...
Damn.
Look, I grew up in the river, right? They have kids when they're 20 out there, right? So
There's grandmas at 40.
Axel knows what I'm talking about.
Very well.
Yeah. But, I mean, just thinking of IPAs in general, like, we understand it. When you were just saying there, Sayre, sort of touched to me like the West Coast IPA, right? Like, what is the West Coast IPA? I've seen it interpreted so many different ways, and that's where we are. Like, we live in that region of the world, like we're on the West Coast. So if anyone knows what a West Coast IPA, it should be the beer professionals of the area.
Right.
And I gotta imagine it's probably the same feeling that those over in like Michigan and over on the East Coast feel when someone says like, oh yeah, the East Coast IPA, hazy IPA. But we all know like it's really down to the brewer's interpretation. There's nothing like set in stone. Like, I mean, there's the BJCP guidelines, right? And some of these styles aren't represented in that, but it is kind of always going to be like an interpretation of what the style is from the brewer, but also an interpretation of what that's supposed to mean as the consumer,
And that's like, to me, very reminiscent of like what a chef would do at like a kitchen at any fine dining. It's like sometimes you're going on interpretation of like, what is this? But then you're adding your own little twist. Like, I think of like Californos in like San Francisco. It's like a Mexican with like Asian spin on this, and like it's fine dining. And I was like, it's kind of what like West Coast Pilsner's evolved into, or like a cold IPA when someone's like, I want to do not a West Coast Pilsner, but a West Coast Pilsner kind of like.
Yeah, and we just had Big Country in here talking about when he was designing the Beer 2000 recipe, and he's like, I don't like Imperial Stout, so I took it and designed it as if it was like a black barley wine, and I just like listened to that, absorbed it, and now that's like part of how I'm going to describe it to people going forward, you know, like this
Yeah,
is
definitely.
coming from the brewer.
Yeah, like that beer was not sugary, like super syrupy.
Right.
It was like the hops were like all these classic C hops. That I was like, wow, I've never had an Imperial Stout that's drinkable.
Right. Because you were too young in 2000.
Yeah, that's funny. That's actually hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, what you're saying, Axel, is really interesting because when you describe like a thick, syrupy, like too intense Imperial Stout, I think of those as being like, that's probably what I'm going to get when I order one somewhere. But the way the Beer 2000 actually tastes and comes across is more of what I think an Imperial Stout should be or should be about. Like something that reminds me of Old Rasputin, something that doesn't have a bunch of, like, I love all these cool adjuncts. Like, I want my beer to taste like donuts. Don't get me wrong. I think you need like one more word, like pastry in there, to make your Imperial Stout taste like donuts. To communicate that intention to me, I need one more word. But there are so many Imperial Stouts being made nowadays with tons of maple syrup and lactose and other things that people are just labeling that Imperial Stout, and then you're drinking it. I had one from Adobe Creek it was labeled a pastry stout, so I knew what I was getting into. But if that had been called an Imperial Stout, I wouldn't have been shocked at what they handed me, but I would have been like, this isn't quite what I was looking for. And to me, an Imperial Stout in my head is still what the Beer 2000 is, even if that is not what the modern Imperial Stout is tasting like, much like the way IPAs changed.
100%.
To an old grandpa like me.
Well, and the thing is, I think if you don't apply the distinction and you just let it change, then it's very easy for the older one to disappear.
Definitely.
Right? Because if it is like pastry stout means adjunct, Imperial Stout means something, like, is Old Rasputin still a North Star for a category of beer? And if you're going to say yes to that, you need to give me an example.
Right.
And it can't be the one we just made called the Beer 2000.
Right. No, I really do agree. I think maybe in a few years, it'll be like a barley Imperial Stout, and that's going to communicate that this was only made like with barley. Of course, you know, there'll be hops in there, there'll be water, there'll
An
be
adjunct-free pastry stout?
Yeah.
You just have to include that as part of the moniker.
Dude, yeah, they're making this barley Imperial Stout like they totally stripped it down. Like there's no vanilla, there's no
Just
oats,
the barrel
there's no
characteristics
lactose.
leaching out into it.
Yeah.
The new hotness is just simplicity.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, but you do see that in other art movements, right? I think that
Yeah.
like popular music will get really larded up and then it'll get really stripped down. It's almost just like a truth of young cultures. And by that, I don't mean like people in their 20s and 30s. I mean like the US has only been around for a few hundred years. Mm-hmm. Whereas like an ancient culture will have like deeply traditional ways of doing things, right? And that is the right way. And the only option you have is to either adhere to that convention or reject it. Mm-hmm. Younger cultures, I think, are more reactionary, where it's like, we're doing this right now, and we're way over. You can't see me, but I'm like gesturing as far as I can to the right? Like, we're doing this, and then we decide that this isn't cool, or we're done with this. And then instead of like moving that 6 inches in, we go to the extreme left.
Right.
You know, so I think that's where you get the...
It's like a seesaw. You know?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So like you go from the bitterness, the IBU arms race in IPA to IPA resembling Hefeweizen.
Yeah.
You go from extremely bitter, no adjunct, not even no candy element to them, Imperial Stouts to like the extreme. And I would imagine if there's going to be a trend backlash in those segments, it's not going to be like, here's what we learned from, you know, pastry stout that complements Imperial Stout, or here's what we learned from. You know, that's kind of what we try to do with our IPAs.
That's what I was going to say. Is like that's what I love about our production department, is because they'll take the lessons they learn from brewing a style that fits into that category at all. Take the lessons from that and apply it to something to make our Beer 2000 maybe isn't exactly what it was like in the 2000, because somebody took it and tried to bring the roastiness down a little bit. learn some of those lessons from the new stuff and apply it to the old stuff while appreciating where we came from along the way, you know?
Like Crosby Pro-Am or like Short Range DeLorean are like perfect examples of this. These are like old school, like malt and like piney, but still just like crushable, which I was just like, this is like what fresh Sierra Nevada must have tasted like that I never got to taste.
Right.
Yeah.
But see, to me, that fits in the reactionary dynamic, right?
Yeah.
That's like, motherfucker, I can't get anything that's like Sierra Nevada Pale. I'm just going to make Sierra Nevada Pale, right? I'm not allowing Sierra Nevada Pale Ale to influence Stoked. You know, I always say the Nirvana Unplugged album, right?
Right.
It's like, and I think that's cool. And in some ways, I feel like that is a better way to reckon with the guest expectation piece, right? Because the risk you run of trying to make subtle, tasteful pastry stouts or subtle, tasteful milkshake IPA is satisfying no one.
Right.
Right? I would say, you know, if we were going into our catalog, a time where we did that to me would be Azorian.
Yeah.
Right? Like we were like, this is kind of a pastry stout, but we're still sort of afraid of that.
Yeah, we didn't go all in on that.
Yeah. And frustratingly, that beer is objectively delicious.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like I think it leaves everybody wanting more or less.
Right.
Right? And that's a tricky part with any art that you're going to try to sell. Right? Like if you're just creating for the sake of making the thing that makes you the most happy, which is like, you know, the purest way to be creating something, I suppose, then make what excites you and tastes best to you. But
yeah, I mean, you got to satisfy yourself first, right? Before
Nick Moreira seem really satisfied to you?
that dude is an enigma. I don't know. It's hard to tell what he's feeling at any given moment.
We were satisfying Nick Moreira. We'd like only make red overalls and Star Turn.
But he makes beers that maybe he's not like super interested in good, and then he becomes interested in them because of that, you know. And it's like him teaching himself in that moment.
That's part of the job, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how do I stay interested in what's getting my customers excited?
Because if it's not interesting and exciting to you, it's not going to be interesting and exciting to the customers, you know.
I think there's people who are good at making things cynically.
That does exist.
Yeah.
I saw that a lot this weekend, actually. This last weekend.
Yeah, a lot of people just being like, just the beer, drink it. And I was like, sometimes I feel like that, but can you go a little bit more?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, I hate that. The reason Stoked is a part of this company's branding is a particular brewery owner that interacted one too many times with Colin, whining about people enjoying his beer.
Got so much work I gotta do.
Selling so much damn beer.
I gotta tell someone about this thing that I love to drink.
Yeah. Or, you know, maybe don't love the drink is the thing that makes it drudgery, right? But trying to bring this back to applying to this, in our discussion that we've just had in a very roundabout way about style, if this is a Mexican style lager, is red overalls.
Ooh.
Yeah, they both are. You know, like I think they both can exist within the naming convention, you know?
Yeah.
It's really IPA. I always come back to that. Like, how many different kinds of IPA can you experience under the name IPA?
Quite a few.
And if we're able to do that, and that's what's driving our industry, then we should be able to apply that to other styles beyond IPA too.
Yeah, I mean, think about just bouncing around Santa Rosa drinking IPA.
Yeah, it's so much variety, so much like uniqueness.
Like Bombay by boat to Pliny.
Oh my god!
To the stuff we do
over at Coop, it's different than here, and then you know the beers over at Old Kaz have
Three Disciples is doing some straight haze too.
Yeah, amazing
Shady
stuff.
Oak.
Yeah, Shady Oaks. They made their IPAs. It happened. I never thought that was going to be a thing, and then it was, and now here we are.
Sooner or later, everyone's got to pay rent. There come the IPAs.
But I think that IPA may be an exception, right? Like I think if people,
I'm saying it doesn't have to be an exception. Though,
okay,
you know?
so you're thinking we can grow the interest and credibility of other beer styles so much that people are going to be like, let's see what your Mexican lager tastes like.
I mean, I feel like that's already been happening with lagers a lot recently. I mean, they were already very much appreciated and lauded over in Germany, but now like people are really freaking into it and know a lot about it in our, you know, community.
In Europe, the stylistic definitions are fucking
strict,
like, codified.
Yeah, super strict.
I had the pleasure of grabbing a beer from Cloudburst, and it said bastardized Pilsner.
Really?
And I was like, I love this. I was like, a bastardized Pilsner is like what you. Most of these are bastardized versions of these styles.
Right, there ain't no Motueka hops in Victoria.
Yeah, no,
it's true.
Right.
But that's what's great about American beer is the, you know, creativity.
Right.
And pushing things to the edges of the seesaw. And I guess some of us over here, you know, at Henhouse are maybe working our way down the seesaw before it all tips over. Sometimes when we're doing styles. Yeah.
Bob, what do you think?
You know, I'm looking at this really well-researched and written full pint article that I linked into the information on this beer the first time I wrote it up, and it's still like really accurate. And it talks about how when you see a Mexican lager in America from a craft brewery, you're looking at like one of a couple of different groups, and like we fall into a group by including a little bit of lime and salt. So we don't actually include lime, but we are using that lime character of the Motueka hop to simulate that. And to me, when I first saw this recipe was coming out with salt, I was like, I don't really get that. That seemed like a flag on the field kind of thing. Flag on the field meaning that is not exactly to the rules, and I do not care for it like a referee would do in a professional sporting game.
Thanks for breaking that down.
Yeah.
A lot of our listeners don't know what a flag is.
I'm actually not even 100% sure what sport I'm referring to when I use that metaphor, like not hockey or basketball. Anyhow,
It's true. It does need to be a field.
yeah, it needs to be a field.
It's one where my name comes from.
Right.
I'm only called Fridge because of that game.
Really? You're William Perry?
Yeah, I always tell people he's my dad, but then they laugh, and I'm like, just kidding. Of course not. But
Really good.
my football coach was from Chicago, and I ran all his plays and had all his positions. So I was
You were the goal line back as well?
I was the Guerneville Gator refrigerator. Yeah.
Man, I would drink that. It's funny because it goes back to our beer with electrolytes, Gatorade beer.
Oh,
that could be the
bring
name.
that-
It's all
now it's coming.
it's all coming back together.
I mean, salt.
But yeah,
salt in it.
exactly. So yeah, this little bit of salt, it doesn't really express itself a lot on the palate. I'm assuming that it's doing this trick salt does, where salt will minimize bitterness. So it's softening some of that bitterness and making this beer much more drinkable without reaching a level of like genuine perceived salinity that I certainly hit with Oyster Stout. And I would say I occasionally experience it in juiced. These are the only 3 beers that we add salt to. And it's really nice. But like if I read that on like, you know, someone's beer board, like lager brewed with salt, I'd be like, What?
Yeah.
I mean, I would order it because I would have to know. Like, what are they doing? They can't do that. Get me one pint, please. And that's the adversarial experience I have.
That's
with
the angel
myself.
and the devil on your shoulders?
Yeah. When I go into breweries and read their beers, I'm either trying to drink the thing I think I will like the most, or the thing that like makes me think, how dare you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love our contribution to this style. And I think anyone ordering this will get it and will get the experience they're looking for. But there is some variation. This doesn't really taste like a Corona. We don't keep limes behind the bar. It doesn't really taste like Modelo Especial, but a little. I got a little of that in there.
The first beers that I ever like got at a party when I was a little youngin' were Pacificos, and I remember just thinking like, oh, these are really good, you know, because I tasted like Rolling Rock and Miller High Life in my instant mashed potatoes. Like I've told you that story before. Yeah.
Big, classy.
Super classy, yeah. Budweiser, Rolling Rock, and Miller High Life was prevalent in my household. But as soon as it was like time for, you know, my mom to go get us a case of beer for my party, I was like, those look cool. Why don't you bring those?
Yeah.
And we all enjoyed them, the Pacificos, you know?
I think you're touching on another thing that goes into this style thing, is if someone between, say, Axel's age and mine in this part of the world has a just wonderful sense memory of Mexican lager,
Exactly.
again, it's probably not that Vienna with a little bit of corn.
Right.
It's probably something very lean, very like complimentary to an awesome experience or a sporting event, right? Like, you know, I played golf in high school, like crushing, like, you know, Corona, Modelo Especial, things like that on a golf course is definitely like a sense memory for me. Poolside, drinking cans of Mexican beer is definitely a sense memory for me.
Yeah.
And that gets wrapped up into that guest expectation. And that's a completely legitimate desire to have when you arrive at a tasting room or a bar.
Yeah.
Like, I would like to revisit this thing that made me happy one time.
Yeah.
Right? And then if we're going to be like, well, that thing you enjoyed was actually not a Mexican lager. Would you like to try a real Mexican lager? And be like, go fuck yourself. Right. So that's why like, I don't have an answer for this. Like, I really enjoy the difference between this and Red Overalls. And then like us as a marketing department, I appreciate how differently presented those two beers are.
Right.
Yeah.
I can say like my dad, like since we're Mexican and he's had a lot of people like he works with that are like, oh, some of those IPAs are just like too strong, too bitter, and like handed him like 4 packs of this and Red Overalls, and they've both like gone over really well, but it probably didn't meet, like you said, their guest expectations of what they had, but they were like, these are really, really good beers, and I'm like, yeah, you taste them, you're like, it's not like what I've had before, but this is kind of a different flavor, different little like touches that like you can see being done. Like,
Yeah. I think if we're doing
Fresh
our
take.
job,
Yeah.
I think if we're doing our job, Matinee Idol has the relationship to something like a Corona that perhaps our IPAs have to Lagunitas IPA, right? Somebody who has had that and been like, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, this makes me happy.
No,
and
that-
then we can be like,
that really
oh,
fits.
but guess what? It goes to 11 though. You know,
Right,
like,
right.
like let's keep it going. And I hope that that's the case. Whereas what I love about Red Overalls is, to me, that is just like, that's Nirvana covering Lead Belly. That's like, let's just play the fucking song because it's a great song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we have the equipment to make it sound really good, you know?
And that's your favorite beer, right, Axel?
Which one? Red Overalls?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Or one that we've not made, third volume, but
Yeah. God,
Yeah.
that beer keeps coming back up.
We were
I
just
was
talking about it
floored
last
by
week.
third
Yeah.
volume. Yeah. And I do think there's a way back to a beer of that character that we could call a cold IPA. And
Yeah. Yeah.
sneak
Just
right on by
sneak it
people.
in. Under,
Sure.
Yeah. And
Just
that,
like-
that fits with the whole like style naming convention conversation we're having right now.
Yeah, because if you call it a brewed IPA, people are going to be like, I hate those.
Yeah. Fuck that.
Yeah.
it's the new hot style right now. So hot.
I feel like we should just as an experiment intentionally name something really fucked up, you know, like let's do like a pastry brewed IPA, you know, and just see what happens, you know, but actually make whatever we want under that.
You're
flag.
aware that there's like cream seltzer already, right?
Yeah, we were just talking about smoothie seltzer.
Smoothie seltzer.
Smoothie seltzer exists. Yeah. There's no, you can't out irony the world anymore.
Damn it.
Yeah.
It's just
So
like,
true.
Somebody's just like, oh, we've done that, and we our IPOs next week. You know?
Yeah.
There's hard sodas now.
Right.
Hard,
Yeah.
hard, I was like,
Dude, there's coffee hard soda.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Finally, all the flavors of coffee in a soda, but this time it'll get you drunk.
And caffeinated.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. No.
Keep you drinking.
That'd actually probably be a pretty good drink for mornings at Boonville. No, I'm just kidding.
I have consumed one in the
Probably
morning.
is.
Yeah.
Wasn't my proudest day.
Oh, yeah. You've been there. You've done that.
I mean, I have consumed I guess it was a hard coffee. I don't know if it was the hard coffee soda yet.
Was it the PBR one?
Of course.
Yeah, yeah. That one's delicious, actually.
The classicists lose again.
Yeah. My question, like this is a great beer and I love the way it fits into our celebrity lager line. But I want to know if y'all think Mexican lagers are still having their moment in craft beer. Because I remember when these were just popping out everywhere.
They really were.
And they have been,
Yeah.
over the last year or two. And I'm really interested to see, how is 21A's El Sully doing currently? Are we going to keep seeing a lot of these? Are we going to start seeing a lot more of them?
That Berryessa one was good.
The Berryessa one is exactly what I was just thinking of. Yeah.
Was it La Fuerza?
La Fuerza.
Yeah.
That's what it was called. I had that on draft at 2 different jobs at one point.
Yeah.
Alvarado's Citravesa, and it was like a popular one that like every time I'm in beer craft, they're always like, we want this. I was like, yeah, I like to buy a 4-pack and take it camping. That's a good camping beer. No, other half does Lime Snaps. They're corn lager with lime, and that's been one of their most popular beers among people.
Yeah, but it's funny because I think Citravesa definitely has people are excited about it, and it's much more like a industrial lager that happens to be Mexican filtered through the craft prism.
Right.
Whereas I think La Fuerza and El Sully I don't have a sense memory of, but in my head they're more the. Did you know this style had a dignity, a historical dignity that we could
Right.
show you?
There's the history here. you know?
Right. And I wonder if that moment is to continue, if we need another word.
Right.
Whether there's, contemporary Mexican style lager or corn lager with salt or lime or, whatever we end up calling the things like Matinee Idol, Citravesa, both of those employ hops that had not found a role in the brewing world until IPA. Right?
Yeah.
They're definitely like hops that exist because they are used in abundance in IPAs. Whereas something like Red Overalls or La Fuerza, or I feel like Berryessa might have made one with a Nouveau hop too, but I'm failing to remember it right now.
Like a twist on their La Fuerza or something?
Something. But yeah, I guess the short answer to your question, Bob, is no. I don't think Mexican lager is still having its moment.
Okay.
Yeah, because it really was like popping off, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And now it's...
They were all ending in Vesa.
Yeah.
Sierra Vesa. Stone had Bueno Vesa.
Yeah.
Buena Vesa, something like that. I'm like, Buena Vista? Nope, Buena Vesa.
Right. But it's almost like they still exist, and when you get there, they'll have the moment when you're there and you see it, and you're not seeking it out, but when you see it, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, let's do one of those, you know?
Until we take the entire core, I think people still come to craft for something, right? That is different than buying a 24-pack of, whatever, right?
Right.
And I think that there's been a market correction to the slow pour thing. Give me something I can slow pour, give me something I can decoct, give me something that I can dress in all of the extras and pageantry that come with drinking craft beer, that come with drinking this special, more thoughtful, more thing that requires more of me as a consumer. Whereas, like, this beer is definitely best enjoyed, like, complementing some really fun, nice weather life.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we're there yet. Hopefully, things like this ridiculous label will help us get there to where somebody's like looking at this 4-pack, which is going to be like $13.99.
Yeah.
And looking at, whatever the price might be for 24 Coronas, and looking at that value proposition, and like, hopefully, if they're having a real cool party, they're doing both, right?
Yeah. It's probably like 18 or something now, $17.99, something like that.
That is cheap.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the loud labels are helping put these celebrity lagers into people's refrigerators at home, and I love that we've gone that route with the lagers, and it's a way to like put as much effort on the marketing side as you would for an IPA, for something that's not going to maybe pay for our health insurance,
Right.
but it just shows how much we care about craft beer at large here at Henhouse. It makes me proud.
Do you think those labels help sell?
I think so too, because before they were like the classic white kind of banquet style, and it looked like really
Heritage.
nice.
Heritage label. Yeah.
And now it's just like way better. Like honestly, they pop more. Star Turn, Matinee Idol,
Yeah.
Glam Life is just like this, like Prince, like themed out, like perfect purple.
Getting excited for
it's
that
getting
one.
more purple.
Oh,
Ooh, yeah.
And it's been, it's been fun to see. I've talked about this before. I'll probably talk about it again. But when this celebrity lager thing was proposed to me, the initial argument, the question was, do people who want to drink beers like this, like, not care for amusing, intriguing pageantry on the can, or has just no one tried to hit them with that yet? Because you want to communicate to that simpler, more old-timey beer consumer, here, you're safe. Look how old-timey this is. Look at how simple this is.
Yeah.
And everything in the can, also old-timey and simple, you're safe. Drink this. But jazzing them up has just been really fun. Like, I've had this hen directly facing me during this whole podcast. And it's like tough to keep a straight face because I'm just getting the biggest kick out of it. And it really does also kind of double back to the whole, like, when you're just cracking a beer, if you're like cooking dinner, like as you're sauteing something in front of your stove, I hope someone is
beer for that.
Yeah, and you're holding the can and you're just
I've
like
done that.
You're just like cracking up. You're like taking a few sips. You're like throwing some chopped onions to sizzle on something, and you're just like, these crazy people at Henhouse. I love this.
Bob,
It's
your
awesome.
words are so vivid.
Love you, Josh.
You take me there to the
Yeah,
moment.
Josh took us all there.
Oh, Josh killed it.
Yeah, that is Pete Davidson as a chicken that I'm looking at.
Tweet Davidson?
Yeah, Tweet Davidson.
Davidson. Oh no.
Oh, man.
Jesus, what did we just create?
Okay, yeah. If we spin this off to like another, like if we do a twist on Matinee Idol, it's gonna be Tweet Davidson.
Tweet Davidson.
What's the extra ingredient that makes it Tweet Davidson?
Cigarette butts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way to keep it
Depression.
clean.
Bad
Yeah.
tattoos
Yeah,
on the
Zoloft.
Yeah.
God, jeez. Oh man.
It's a great beer in a great can, and I hope people are going to be having a ton of fun with this summer.
Yeah. Get yourself some Matinee Idol while you can, because it's gonna go fast.
and drink a lot of it.
Let us know what you think. Email us
podcast at Henhouse Brewing.
I think that the whole like having to go specifically to how the rules are written, right? And it's almost like, where are the rules? Is it the BJCP that you're getting your rules from?
Literally, yes.
Yeah. So it reminds me a lot of like how people play Dungeons and Dragons too.
Right.
There's the raw guys, rules as written.
Right.
If it's not in the book, you can't do it.
Right.
And then there are the DMs that are like wanting their players to have the best possible time. So if they come up with something because maybe they didn't read the book, they don't know what they're doing, they'll work with you to make something happen. It's kind of like how beer is made, depending upon who's doing it. It's always an interpretation
Or a constitution.
Yeah.
D&D has strict constructionalists.
Right.
And what's the opposite of a strict constructionalist? It's been a long time since I was in
Well, it also
school.
Constitution is part of your skill checks, or it's part of your ability scores, right?
Right.
So strength,
How much
dexterity.
poison you can take without it kicking your ass.
Dwarves have a +2 to their con because they can take more poison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm learning so much on this podcast.
Man, that company party taught me a lot about my constitution.
Oh, yeah. You have like a +5 or something.
Apparently, I
You're
do.
Level 20 legendary.
Or I'm so old, the hangover comes like a week later now, like when you least expect it.
Just like mid-drive.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, no driving after the party.
No, but like later this week, it'll just arrive at my house. I'll get home and there will be a hangover waiting for me.
He's done with work, going home. He's like,
Just all of a sudden hit with a ton of bricks.
Splitting headache and like nausea. Yeah.
Well, this has been an excellent podcast. Thanks for coming on, Axel.
my pleasure.
Yeah, give us a beer we should seek out. For those that don't know, Axel is definitely the eyes and ears out there in the world.
He's on the ground.
I would get anything slice right now or anything wondrous.
Wondrous.
Yeah.
Word.
Dude, you know so much about the beer scene right now. You're very impressive, charismatic, and I'm proud to work with you, buddy.
I appreciate it. I'm glad to have known you for a good solid amount of time. Appreciate Bob and Sayre for getting me into this whole industry too.
Dang, that's you, dude.
We all lift each other up.
And now, Sensory First.
Welcome to Sensory First, where we are taking a deeper dive into the beers of the Henhouse Brewing Company. We just spent a bunch of time talking about all of the flavors in this beer. I'm going to sit down with head brewer Zach Kelly and discuss how those flavors were created. We are getting into Matinee Idol, our lovely Mexican-style lager. And here we are with this magical lager. Best batch ever. Last batch was good. This batch, I argue, is superior in all ways.
Yeah, this is a fantastic beer. Part of what makes it a Mexican lager is we've got some crisp flaked maize in here.
A little maize in there.
Besides a bunch of Pilsner malt and some Vienna. A little bit of a malty backbone on that.
Right.
As far as hops, we've got our good old friend Czech Saz.
Yeah.
A little bittering addition, and then sea salt. And because we can't keep away from our New Zealand hops, I straight up talked to a New Zealand woman and made sure that I got this right.
Oh, good.
Motueka. There it is.
Yeah.
Motueka.
Motueka.
I had a friend's baby shower, and there was a woman from New Zealand. I was like, we need to show you a couple things from this hop list, and I want to make sure that I'm saying them right when I'm sitting on a microphone on the internet.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we've got some of the Motueka hops going into our Whirlpool, the sea salt as well, a few pounds of that, which gives it like a nice balance to the corn. And I think this is just a really classic Mexican lager with, just a little bit of that Henhouse sauce rubbed on.
Yeah, which may be a New Zealand hop rubbed on there. I really like it. I love that the full pint did, I think, a really good job of breaking down like the different kinds of Mexican-inspired lagers there are. There are the beers that are purely pulling from the way a lot of the really popular imported Mexican lagers are in the U.S. market. And then we're starting with that, and then we're building on it a little bit by kind of trying to provide a little bit of salinity and liminess through our addition of salt and our addition of the limey Motueka hop. I think this is a really fun way of presenting these beers. The name Motueka translates as Island of the Weka, which is a flightless bird, sometimes known as the wood hen or Maori hen. So loosely, it's Island of the Hen.
My wife
Hen
was
Island?
chased in Stewart Island by a weka bird
No way!
on our honeymoon. We got really intense. We saw this like tiny bird. We We were like, we've done it. We found a kiwi. And then it started chasing my wife, and it was definitely not a kiwi. It was a weka.
Okay.
So they're slightly jerks, but I know all about them. Another fun thing about that is Haley, the young woman I met, her family immigrated in like the late 1800s to New Zealand. And the reason she knew the history and the pronunciation of this hops is that her grandparents, or maybe great-grandparents, were hop pickers in the place called Motueka.
This is amazing. Not a visual medium, but my jaw hath dropped. That is so cool. Wow. I had no idea that New Zealand hop cultivation went back that far. I know that it goes back a lot further than their use of New England IPAs, but I was not aware of that. Fantastic.
Yeah, so wild what you learn at a baby shower in Santa Rosa, California.
That's amazing. Yeah, like, I feel like we've softened up the bitterness a lot on this batch, and it's just a great beer for sipping and reading about the history of New Zealand and learning more about the plants and animals in New Zealand. It's fantastic. I look forward to sipping this one for many weeks to come.
Yeah, enjoy the sweetness, the nice malty backbone, that slight salinity, and it's 4.8% ABV.
That's perfect. Cheers.
Cheers.
Henhouse Unruffled was created by Anna Scott. We record at Henhouse Brewing Company's Palace of Barrels in Petaluma, California. Our producer is Brian Henderson, and our associate producers are Josh Staples and Fridge. The music you've been listening to was written and performed by our San Francisco account rep McLean from his album Speechless and Speechless 2, which you can find on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, and anywhere one finds dope music. If you have a question or comment about this or any episode of Henhouse Unruffled, please let us know by calling 707-347-9425 to leave a message. You can also send an email to podcast@henhousebrewing.com. For more information, visit www.henhousebrewing.com or stop by one of our Bay Area tasting rooms. The voice you've been listening to is Imani Russell Black. Please listen and drink responsibly.